If you're going into the midterms from a place of confidence and like you're proud of your agenda and you feel like the country's thriving, you're not trying to gerrymander the shit out of states to get yourself more seats. It's not giving confidence.
Hello and welcome to the Bulwark podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. Delighted to welcome back to the show, co-host of The View, political commentator for CNN. She used to work for Trump. And Mike Pence and some other people. It's Alyssa, Farah, Griffin. What's going on, girl? How you doing? It's been too long.
I know. It's so good to see you. I am literally your biggest listener. I don't think I've missed a pod since the last time I was on, which was like well over a year and a half ago.
Yeah. Why has it been so long? And you should be giving me some negative feedback then. I mean, I can't be nailing it every day.
So honest, I was going to tell you this off air, but my husband and I got together with new neighbors and, you're trying to like feel out, like sniff out who they are, what they're into. And my husband's more delicate than me. So he's like, so what are you listening to? Any good podcasts? And the guy says the Bulwark. And I was like, we found our people. If you'd said Candace Owens, it'd be tough.
We're going to get to Candace. But while we're glazing each other a little bit, I guess you guys played a clip of the Olivia Nuzzi podcast on The View.
We did.
Now,
yes.
I'm working during the day during The View. So, I'm watching you guys via clips only. It's nothing but love. But, that's just life.
I don't think anyone under 50 watches other than through clips.
I was going to say, though, my mother's friends, when you played that clip, my mother said her phone was exploding. 10, 11 texts from her friends about my quasi-appearance, just my face appearing on The View. So thank you for that. We
have to make it your not first official appearance, though. We've got to have you on in some way, in like the flesh.
You just let me know. And you're having a baby. We're going to just do this first, too. Then we'll do politics.
I am 7 months pregnant, and if I'm out of breath, sweating, then cold, then cranky, like all of the things are happening right now. But I'm so excited.
I would have guessed 3 months. You're looking great. Okay.
I like to shoot from here up.
I think we're going to have a happy podcast, which is, out of character. But there's just been a lot of setbacks for MAGA over the past couple of days. The loss for Trump in the gerrymandering fight in Indiana is something I want to spend quite a bit of time on. They proposed some new maps that would have taken the state from being a 7-2 split with 7 Republican congressional seats and 2 Democratic congressional seats to a 9-0 absurd gerrymander that would have given Democrats no representation at all in Indiana. And the Republican state Senate rejected it.
I do think it's hugely significant. For one, the fact that this was just talking about adding 2 seats. It wasn't like we're going to massively, which by the way matters when you've got a slim majority and he wants to keep the House. But this wasn't his own party bucking him because he was trying to do something so beyond the pale. I think that it reminded me that there are Republicans and conservatives at the state level who might still believe in some things. Their own state held power, the way they conduct their elections, the way that they draw their congressional districts, because I know you, like I, have been so frustrated to see so many people we've known over the years, frankly, over the decades, who've kind of just folded on every major issue. And this is one where it felt like a state, a very red state, Mike Pence's home state that Trump's won, really reinserting its power. And what's also interesting is the dynamics of these threats that some of these lawmakers were facing. They're getting harassment, they're getting death threats. It's interesting to see when like the power of how Trump compels his enemies also is directed at those who really aren't his enemies and are generally with him on most things. It's like Marjorie Taylor Greene all over again, where these lawmakers, I bet, have voted for him every time. I bet they support 99% of his agenda, but they're like, you know what, we're going to draw our own congressional maps. We're going to make these decisions in the state how we want to. And they're treated no differently than like the biggest MAGA opponent out there. Yeah,
the one example of the threats, the story I read, I think this is over at CNN, it was cute, was there's a 76-year-old state senator in Indiana, Jean Leasing, I think you said her name. She was speaking at her grandson's middle school. And then later in the day, after she came back to pick him up from basketball practice, he kind of was embarrassed to tell her that the other players in the team were receiving text messages like dogging her that day, and like there was pressure being put on the grandkids, basically, like saying like, tell your grandmother to get in line and give Mr. Trump what he wants. And she was basically like, hell no, I have not lived 76 years to have my grandson be bullied for this gerrymandered district on behalf of 100%. Donald Trump. I love that. I love 100%. That story.
But then also, like, the bigger picture of this is if you're going into the midterms from a place of confidence and like you're proud of your agenda and you feel like the country's thriving, you're not trying to gerrymander the shit out of states to get yourself more seats. That's just, it's not giving confidence. And I think that, like, listen, the average ballot, like, Dems are up by plus 14 points. That's not a great place to be if you're Mike Johnson, if you're the Trump administration. And I think they're realizing it's going to be a lot harder to make the case for keeping the House than it is to try to win these state level battles like Texas and Indiana.
Yeah. Mike Johnson was screaming this morning in the hallway about how this wasn't that big of a loss and Trump's not a lame duck, not a lame duck. And it was kind of reminiscent of like, well, I guess you're about to find this out. You don't know, but like my second grader, like she lost her math notebook yesterday and I found it. And I was like, where, like, why did you put it there? And she's like, I found it. I found the math book. And I was like, no, you didn't. I found it. It's just like the only thing you can resort to is just adamantly like yelling. And he felt like a child, just like yelling, it's not a lame duck. He's still strong. He's still very strong. It's like, I think your yelling is betraying the truth of the situation here.
100%. And I still don't understand how people like Speaker Johnson think this is going to go any differently than it went for Paul Ryan, for Kevin McCarthy before him, and for him. You've even got now this reporting that Marjorie Taylor Greene might even try to do like a vote of no confidence in him before she leaves the House. I love the pettiness of it. Good for her. But there's also such a frustration in the conference. Like, Republicans are not happy with Johnson. They feel like him keeping them out of session to like not vote on the Epstein files. They know that's hurting them in their midterms ahead. So I think he knows it's bigger than the anger he's going to get from Trump. It's also his own people.
Speaking of pettiness and revenge, do you think your old boss, and it feels like your old boss Mike Pence was involved in this, and there's some reporting on that he was doing things behind the scenes. It's hard for me to tell exactly how much, but it seems like he was making some calls, whipping.
I have no personal knowledge, but I would say I think that he's an old school conservative in the sense that he believes these decisions should be made by the state lawmakers without federal pressure, without the president even threatening to withhold federal aid to the state. And I think it's pretty aligned with his viewpoints of how Indiana should be able to make determinations on their congressional maps. And I did notice Tim Chapman, who former Heritage Action, been in the conservative movement a million years and now working with Pence, he pushed back super hard at Heritage Action for basically coming out and criticizing Indiana for this decision. So if nothing else,
worse than that, Heritage Action was like had sent this tweet that was basically like, if you don't give Mr. Trump what he wants, like, we're not going to give you road fund. The administration.
Oh, they've gone full authoritarian. This iteration of Heritage is mind blowing. I stopped even arguing with them because I'm like, when you guys are like defending Viktor Orban, you're for like bigger federal government reaching into states to punish states' decisions. Like, I don't really know. We don't even meet on anything. Like, it's not even worth the conversation.
That's interesting. Well,
but I like to think that Pence is behind the scenes, involving himself.
Me too. I usually don't kind of get enamored with like the political fan fiction, kind of stuff about the behind secret machinations and payback. And I kind of think it happened though this time. I think that there were machinations. It feels like the fact that this happened in Indiana is not an accident, I guess. Well,
and if I could just add on that too, if that is the case that there's Pence involvement, I think it would be partially about the role of the state, as I said, in setting its own congressional maps, but also there's major agenda sticking points that Pence sees differently from Trump 2.0. And one of them, he's been huge in pushing back on the tariffs, and that's absolutely hurting Indiana, big agricultural state, big manufacturing state. It's very un-Pensy to do something purely out of pettiness. It would be because there's a substantive disagreement that he has.
Another bad news sign this morning, my colleague Andrew Egger wrote about this in Morning Shots. Do you know who the chair of the RNC is?
I literally had to Google this before we were on. I was like, how do I not know? I thought it was Mike Whatley, but it's not. He's something else.
He's going to run for Senate now. He's running North Carolina. I saw this guy's name this morning, and I was like, it just shows you how much Trump has like taken over everything. It's
Correct.
Just he has totally sidelined all of the other institutions within the Republican Party, which will be interesting when he goes away. Just going to see how that all shakes out. But some guy named Joe Gruters from Florida, I guess a friend of Susie Wiles, a MAGA guy, is now the chair of the RNC. He was doing conservative radio rounds this week. He said, it's not a secret. There's no sugarcoating it. There's a pending looming disaster heading our way. He said, we're facing almost certain defeat. The chances are Republicans will go down and will go down hard. That's the chairman of the Republican National Committee. How do you raise money from people? How do you go to people and say, please give me $100,000 now after I just told you we're going to go down and go down hard? I should say the RNC did reply that the Bulwark is nothing more than a bunch of shameless hacks. Laundering false smears. I don't understand how they're false smears.
It was literally his words.
It was quoted what he said on the radio. But anyway, I just think that, I guess it tells you all you need to know. I'm not even really sure what my question is, but what are your thoughts on the RNC's analysis?
I mean, I think it's very spot on. I think at least they seem aware of the moment that we're in. And you can't chalk this up to expectation setting. Like, it'd be one thing if we were a month out from the midterms and they're like, listen, it's going to be a tough battle and we've got an uphill. That's what you do in politics, unless you're Donald Trump and you say you're going to win it all and set expectations sky high. But like the Republican Party has struggled since Trump has been in the political sphere to win when he's not on the ballot. And they're going into what they went into in 2018, what they went into in 2022, again, in these midterms, which is his agenda's on the ballot, but you don't have him lifting other candidates by having his name and his energy on the ticket. And I'm not sure what their plan is going to be. It's clearly not a fundraising boon to be saying we're giving up a year out. What do you make of that, though? I mean, we would have gotten fired if we said something like
and I was
this.
just going to say, I think this guy would have gotten fired in Trump 1.0. I think he's kind of maybe he's too focused on the ballroom and stuff to like care about this.
I don't know that he cares about the RNC that much.
Yeah, right. And back originally there was like a power struggle, and that's why he kind of brought Reince over, in the first term, because he was still figuring out, how to open all the doors in DC, and didn't even expect to win himself, right? And wanted to make sure he had control over everything. But now I agree with you, and he dominates everything so much. It's like, who cares what the RNC says? But still, it's just so un-Trumpy to be like, the chances are we're going down and we're going down hard.
Let's not assume he hasn't seen, he may have not seen it yet either. And we may get a Truth Social later. Like, this guy's a clown and doesn't know what he's talking about.
I guess it's probably just a guy that's not very well media trained. And he is stating the obvious. Like, this is a classic, the Kinsley gaffe, where you say something that everybody knows is true, but you're just not supposed to say out loud. But I mean, and also to your point earlier, it is weird how they don't seem to be trying. Like 3 months ago, I would have taken a much more dark view of this, where I'm kind of like, I don't know that they actually care about elections because they're not intending on contesting them. Trump's planning on cheating in some way, or doing what he did last time, and not seating Democrats that win because they're make up some lie about the butterfly ballot or whatever. But now I don't. It doesn't feel like that is what's happening based on what happened a couple weeks ago, or last month now, I guess, in New Jersey and Virginia. My assessment is that the party is just so dependent on Trump. They don't have a North Star message-wise, outside of whatever Trump wants. And Trump feels like he just doesn't care about this stuff anymore. I think he really does care about hanging out with billionaires and getting peace prizes and getting his name on new building. That's my assessment.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And he doesn't care about what is happening in the midterms, or, coming up with a winning policy message that will help Republicans down ballot.
Well, it's interesting. I generally agree with that. But so I want to say it was late August. I said on The View that I thought if the election was reheld that day, Trump would win, likely by the same, if not a bigger margin. Now, that got gasps and boos and headlines. And I was not saying that's the outcome I wanted. Yeah, it's not the outcome I wanted. But they're in two veins, that people who were diehard with him were just as much with him, and you have to run something against someone. And I don't think that there was that there had been some sort of defining thing that made the Democrats come back and feel more formidable. But something happened in the September, October, now through November space. And I think it's a combination of the Epstein betrayal, Republicans in the House basically just absolutely dipping out for not just the month of August as they always do, but not voting for basically 8 weeks, not looking like they're serving the public. And then finally feeling the real impacts of tariffs. The fact that he ran on affordability, he ran on the cost of living, he got elected on that. And everything with the exception of the stock market, which has good days, has bad days, feels like it's more expensive. People can't get ahead. And I think his voters feel betrayed. I think it's people within MAGA that do as well. And there seems to be this real weakness. It is kind of encapsulated in the Marjorie Taylor Greene come to Jesus moment of like, it's one thing to run on how you're going to make everything great, but then you're a year in, and if people are not feeling that, they'll turn on you fairly quickly. They being the voters, but not the elected officials, because they have not learned how to exist in a world where Donald Trump is not like daddy and in charge of everything. And they're standing by him to their own detriment in many ways. Like they're the ones who are going to have to go to their constituents and say, oh yeah, vote me back when your Obamacare premiums spike, when the cost of all groceries are up, and when we just literally lied about releasing the Epstein files, and it had to be the Democrats that forced them to get out. Yeah, and a handful of Republicans.
What do you think about that counterfactual now? If we reheld the election today, who do you think would win? It's honestly still a hard question because of the binary of our politics. Right. I think there's a bit of very deep frustration with the status quo and with him and with the economy that could make it go a different direction. But I also am not convinced that people are dying for what Democrats put up last cycle. Yeah,
what do you think?
Here, it's hard for me to say out loud the Democrats. I haven't like done this little exercise in my brain for a while. I remembered when that little clip of yours went viral, and I was like, that's obviously true to me. When you were saying at the time, I thought it was very obvious that despite Trump's various struggles with tariffs, which was I guess the main thing then, that he still would have won again. I'm trying to think about like what are the demos that would flip at this point. And Hispanic voters is one that you're seeing, and young voters. I think that that probably the young voter would probably snap back to a more traditional type, but that's a small part of the electorate, which is they're less Democrat than they'd been traditionally. And Hispanic voters, I think, particularly like working class Hispanics, I think would kind of go back to like more of how it was with Biden in 20 rather than the gains in 24. Is that enough flippity states? As you were talking, I pulled up Arizona and I was like, how much did he win in Arizona by? He won by 5.5. I don't know. I kind of wonder if he still would win again. And I think that to your point about the Democrat struggles, I think that Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger ran very strong races in New Jersey and Virginia, overperformed. That'd be the counterpoint to this. But I think those very unique. You're talking about state races, and I think that the national Democrats do still have kind of a brand problem on this stuff that they haven't fixed. It's hard to fix without a leader, right? Like who would fix it right now? Like who's the leader of the party? Schumer? There isn't really one. I was on Gavin Newsom's podcast yesterday, maybe him. But that vacuum, I think, is why I'm hesitant.
That's the thing. Like if this was Europe and you're like, would a vote of no confidence succeed today? I think a vote of no confidence in this administration would succeed, but you have to have that alternative. I do think you're absolutely right. Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger ran smart, and they didn't. I don't want to get sidetracked here, but they didn't make their whole personality being against Donald Trump. People's opinions are pretty baked on Trump. They focused a lot on the same issues that got him elected: affordability, healthcare, rising costs, safety in communities. And they did it in a way that they were actively courting people who probably voted for Trump to vote for them. That's how you win in a purple state, and it's how you win nationally.
Yeah, it's interesting. They both exceeded expectations by a lot. And I don't feel like there's been an update in the conventional wisdom in left circle. You're kind of deep in left circles on The View. I wonder what you think about this. The conventional wisdom in left circles has not has been as was after the election, and I believe it's part of this. I'm not mocking this. Democrats need to learn some things from Trump. I agree with that about being more, about how you communicate, being more in your face, controlling the narrative better, and also focusing on working class people's concerns. Those are kind of the two takeaways. And everybody's well, Zoran did that very well. He's good at dominating the narrative, good at focusing on working class concerns. He did that. Cheryl really, her actual electoral performance was more impressive, given what happened in New Jersey in 24 versus 25. And she is the opposite of what the conventional wisdom on the left wants. She was not running as a fire-breathing fighter who's going to really jack up the base. And so I wonder. And anyway, I don't know. What do you think about that? And do you think that we're kind of reliving, a little bit of 2015, where like there's just kind of no amount of facts that will change. Like the Democratic base and elites are so enraged about everything that they want somebody who's going to, rub the other side's face in the dirt, and that's more important than anything else.
It's feeling, actually, that's a better analogy than I'd use. It's feeling very 2015. But I'd also say, like, what I hear a lot from my friends on the left is like, we want an opposition party. But you guys are an opposition party. You could get more effective. Like the strategy of opposition, I think, has at times been like chaotic, if not just feckless. But you also just need to be an alternative. There's the people out there like the James Carvilles of the world who are, pointing to these two moderate wins that they had, and that those are states that are purple as opposed to deep blue Manhattan, that you should take lessons from. But I've heard more folks who are like, we want Zoran Mamdani, we want Jasmine Crockett, our country is so polarized, it's so split, and I feel like there are more folks who would like to believe that Trump is a fluke, despite having been elected twice and won the popular vote, than try to understand that our country might not be exactly how each of our ideologies are. And the closer you could be to the center, the more likely you are to win nationally. I'm also like totally bullish that if something dramatic doesn't happen, we have 3 years. I think the Dems are going to nominate Kamala Harris again. I think they're going to run it back. I really do. I know that's not popular wisdom. I think they're going to run it back. I think they're going to, I don't know, but Gavin's been interesting. I think it's a uphill battle, but from a messaging standpoint, he's been interesting.
We're coming up in that part of the year around Christmas, where the mornings are cold. You're just staying around the house a lot. You're looking for something cozy to put on, but you're going to be in pictures, so you want to look good on Instagram too. I'm telling you, the brand to go to for that combo is our friends at Quince. Quince has exactly what you're looking for this holiday season. They got the Mongolian cashmere sweaters. You can pick one up for $50. Normally you drop about $200 on something like that. They also got wool coats that hold up to daily wear. I got myself a couple of, I didn't go for the cashmere. I got a couple of just of the regular old wool crew knit sweaters. And I was looking pretty cute in one of the gray ones earlier this week, if you caught me in that. Their denim fits right and feels good as well. They partner with trusted factories that maintain high standards for craftsmanship. They cut out the middleman and the markups to make things cheaper for you. I just put in a whole new order for Quince for coming up for myself. I probably should have done it as presents because I've been mentioning in the ads lately. I'm way behind on present buying, but I ended up presenting myself. I deserve it. I bought like a cashmere Henley type thing. I don't know. I think I might look good in it. Keep an eye out for that in the new year. Get your wardrobe sorted and your gift list handled with Quince. Don't wait. Go to quince.com/thebulwark for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/thebulwark. Free shipping and 365-day returns at quince.com/thebulwark. I don't know about the Kamala prediction. That's a bold one. It's nice. It's good to, now you're officially a pundit now with like the Bill Kristol style predictions like that. You do the James Carville line as the Democratic nominee always is the person that can win the black church, and that's been the nominee every cycle. And so that would be the strongest case for running it back. The thing about Zoran, I think this is important to kind of like dissect, because everybody like wants to, what's the line about how winning has 1,000 fathers and losing as an orphan or something like that. Right. Like everyone wants to like project their own interpretation of why Zoran succeeded onto him. But to me, like the one thing that's like important to just recognize that I think makes him a little bit of category difference from what we've seen from Crockett so far. She could change her strategy, is that like both him and Trump did actually try to get voters from the other side. And I know that like this is sometimes I think hard. Some people in my world on the left like have trouble processing that. They're like, "What are you talking about? Trump wasn't a moderate. He was so extreme, and like he wasn't trying to get people from the other side. But he was just like not in the way that you would think, in his weird way, right? Like he was trying to get over Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. people from the other side, and like he wasn't trying to get moderate voters like I'm fiscally conservative and socially moderate, right? Like it wasn't those type of moderate voters. It was different, but he was trying to get people from the other side. And Zoran did that, like actively went after Trump voters and like tried and spoke to them. And I think that's anyway, I do think that's an important lesson that's getting lost a little bit. It
is. We do still forget the like Venn diagram of populist left and populist right. There is an area of overlap. That, and also he just ran a smarter campaign. He was where you needed to be on TikTok, on, pods, who he was talking to. He's running a, 2025 race. And Cuomo was a terrible candidate. I interviewed him and I was like, what happened to like Cuomo of, COVID era?
What's it like being on like just in such a deep blue lib bubble right now? Like, it's so different for you. And you've been doing it for a while. At the beginning, it had to be a little disorienting, but now you're like in there. Okay, I get your pals with the ladies and stuff. Yeah. It doesn't feel like you're doing the Meghan McCain thing where they hate you. It feels like
I can genuinely say I really get along with all the women. It's a learning thing for me. And it's actually super eye-opening still. And I'm like going on 5 years into this, or I guess 4 years coming up on 5. It is interesting coming from my world, which is not my world was much further right than yours was. Yeah. But to meeting people who just see so many things fundamentally differently than you. But the more time you spend with them, like you get at why they do. And you get that there's depth there, there's reason, there's lived experience, even if there's certain things we're absolutely never going to agree on. I find it to be totally fascinating. I think it's made me think deeper about my own positions. I don't think it's dramatically changed any. I think that I have a much more holistic picture, particularly around the way that race folds into politics. I think that's something that Whoopi's cared about her entire career in public life. I think Sunny Hostin talks about with a lot of, many times don't agree with their conclusions, but I think it's been easy for me to sort of dismiss things as talking points that are so deeply rooted in people's held positions. And I think both of them have opened my eyes to like how that factors into things that I might have seen differently. Yeah.
So is that going the other way? Are they ever saying stuff where you're just like, guys, I got to take you down to a NASCAR race or something? like you guys don't understand what's happening. You're too ensconced in your bubble.
I think the one that I said this to all of them directly, is like, I'm like practically in some ways like an abundance Democrat. Like I'm totally like where, like, I'm like, to the sense that I'm a centrist Republican, but I'm like, my biggest critiques of Democrats actually aren't the identity politics or the like more annoying in your face things. It's that I'm still convinced that Republicans at the local level just make things work better, quicker. And like, I care about economics. So I feel like I sometimes want to like knock my head against a wall when I'm like, no, but like California is such a poorly run state from virtually every standpoint. That's the one where I'm like, no, y'all have made me dig in even deeper there.
What it's like having all the field, like, what'd you think about, you said that you think Kamala's going to run it back. So obviously there's something there that you think is landing. And she went back and did her second round after it was like her appearance on The View that got her in trouble during the campaign. What was your sense for her like book tour stuff?
Well, I want to be clear. I don't think she should run again. If the polling was there, she should have run for governor. I think that would have made sense. Start a think tank, be an elder stateswoman of the Democratic Party. I do not think she should run again. My sense with her is I have this genuine affection for Kamala Harris. I've now interviewed her 3 times, I believe. There is a lot more to her. It's not dissimilar, frankly, from a lot of analyses of Hillary Clinton after she ran in 2016. Where
I feel the way about Jeb. I feel it about Jeb. Sometimes people make it about misogyny, and there is some for sure, but like some of it is just like the way that you're built, and I feel that way about Jeb sometimes.
Listen, Kamala Harris is a smart woman. She's a terrible communicator. I would tell her that to her face. She very well may know in her heart what she wants to say. I know she has deeply held viewpoints on a number of issues, but we live in a day and age where your ability to command a soundbite is as important as like the deepest policy knowledge. Like, we're not electing Paul Ryans or like whatever's or Kemps these days. We're electing people who break through, and I don't see her overcoming that.
Who's come through and has been like, and you've been like, wow, they're good. They're better than I expected as like a guest on The View, just as far as being able to hang and talk, like putting like policies aside, just
Josh Shapiro, which is obvious answer, but like knows what he believes in, can articulate it, doesn't get when he gets pushed to the far left by certain co-hosts, he holds his ground and he's not apologetic. When he gets pulled to the right, maybe by me, he knows definitively what his position is. And then he can banter on like, I think Sarah Haynes did just like rapid fire, like favorite Taylor Swift song, like just random things. But like you have to be able to do that shit in politics, and he can do it without blinking because he's like a real human.
How was Marjorie? How was our girl Marge? I've been trying to get her on this show, and she spurned me for you. So now I got to live vicariously through you. Yeah. Well, how was she?
I'm fascinated. I'm still unpacking it in my own heart and mind.
What was it like off camera?
So I went in and talked to her beforehand in the green room. I'm not like, I don't like to be an asshole in politics. So you don't see me like name calling people and that kind of thing, at least like not on air. I'll say it to their face if I'm going to. Yeah. And I'd taken some digs at her that went beyond substantive digs. And like I made fun of a coat she wore or something. So I went in, introduced myself, and I was like, by the way, that was a low point of me. I want to make sure you're welcome and we actually want to hear from you here. I found her charming. I found her normal, articulate. Like at commercial breaks, she just kind of wanted to get to know everyone. I'm not in this like she's something different than what she is, but I found her. I don't know that people are multifaceted. Like I'm not going to be able to unsee that she, followed Parkland kids around and harassed them. Right. But I also can see that when she talks about like healthcare subsidies, I think it's because she genuinely cares about her constituents, and she genuinely is like angry that we're not trying to solve this problem and we're going to let people's healthcare costs skyrocket.
Genuine is the key word. It's just like, don't bullshit me. I don't know. Like I laughed. Yeah. It's offensive at some level. So like, I didn't laugh, whatever. But like she was on 60 Minutes and she's like, I thought there's no better example that she's just being herself than the fact that like she's looking at Leslie Stahl and she's like, it's your fault that the country is divided. And two of my biggest disappointments with Trump is he's been too pro-vaccine and too nice to Israel. And I'm just like, okay, all right, well, like that's a point of view at least. At least you're not faking it like every senator basically in the Republican Party. I was like
slightly starting to get worked over by her in that segment, and then my co-host Sarah Haynes asked her about like appearing with Nick Fuentes, and she totally dodged it. And I was like, okay, back to reality, Alyssa. This is who she is.
What do you make of the MAGA crack up happening? I know you, we were talking for a second in the green room. We both are obsessed with the Candace feud. I did a 35, people can go over to Bulwark Takes if they want, because I think I don't want to subject everybody to this. I did a 35-minute solo monologue on like a 4-minute clip of Tucker and Theo Von talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination. Because I was like, this is really bad. Like Theo Von is the second biggest podcast in the country right now, according to Spotify last year. And Tucker's on there being like, who knows? I can't trust the government. I'm like, he confessed. Like, what are you talking about? He confessed. He's on tape. Like but to me, there's like that part of the crack up, which is like the fight over Charlie's legacy, which is gossipy and dishy and kind of fun. But then I also feel like there's a real like substantive potential crack up happening. And when Marjorie talked about the difference between America First and MAGA, I thought that was a good way of like summarizing it. So anyway, just take that any way you want.
Well, so I don't know. We're going to attribute this to the fact that I'm about to have a baby. So I'm thinking a lot more like big picture. I honestly like delve into the weeds of what obnoxious thing Trump did that day to the degree that I need to be able to talk about it in an informed way on TV. And otherwise for like my mental health and well-being, I'm much more consumed by like these bigger existential questions of like, who are we as Americans? Where are we going as a country? And I remind myself that like, 3 years, a lot can happen, but like my child's not going to remember Donald Trump as president. You know what?
So
my
jealous.
Child, I know. But
what's the saddest part about his win for me? I was like, she's going to remember him now. Fuck.
And she wouldn't remember Obama probably if she's second grade. No. But my son will probably know who Candace Owens is, who Nick Fuentes, who some of these people are. And there are these characters and creations of the MAGA moment that in some ways I think are bigger than him and I think are going to outlive him. Yes, he's the most dominant force in elected politics in both of our lifetimes and probably our grandparents' lifetimes. But I am horrified, freaked out, terrified in a darker and deeper way than I am by the fact that Trump is president for a second time, by what you're seeing on the super online, incredibly influential right. That just not anti-Semitism, but like the deepest, most in-your-face neo-Nazism, white nationalism, the darkest of conspiracy theories are completely mainstreamed. And when I'm not living in my like politics space, I'm like a Bravo reality TV. Like that's what I spend my time with. Yeah. I see people I follow there who are like huge followings. They love Candace Owens.
Right.
They love some of these people. Like, I don't know that we're wrapping our heads around how ingrained this is. And then this sort of Fox shakeup with it, where you had Hannity kind of pushing back, you had Erica Kirk on Outnumbered pushing back without naming Candace Owens. It honestly underscored that something like Fox that helped create some of these individuals is now far less powerful than they are on their own. They created monsters, if you will, and they can't now walk it back and be like, oh, wow, we let this get too bad, too dangerous, too risky.
Yeah. Wow, you've fully gone into my space.
Not
like the old social media place, like the Tim Miller worldview. You are listening too much. Not to take credit for that, but maybe take a break. Look at what JD's doing. I think is the most telling part about this. He won't distance himself from it, and he's got Tucker's kid on his staff. And and Tucker's kid is a grown man, so like you don't want to bring in family, but like he's a grown man who's a key advisor to the vice president, so like you can
he's fair game.
Yeah, absolutely. And so like the fact that JD, who basically recognizes that if he is going to win a primary, he can't alienate those folks, like that shows how big their power is. The two like elements that make me the most both concerned about it and also like kind of confident that this is a trajectory and this is the fight ahead is JD's behavior and the algorithms. I mean, I don't know what the solution is to that with the big tech companies, but it's just like Hannity's not on my it's funny that Hannity's like the normal one now or whatever, but like Hannity isn't
our
showing
North Star.
up. He's not showing up on my For You page. The National Review people aren't, you know what I mean? Like whoever is representative of that, Nikki Haley is, and her son who's gone insane is, speaking of kids, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like the only people that folks are getting delivered are in the Candace Tucker kind of mold. And that's like extremely alarming. And
we can never talk about the algorithm conversation without remembering that like America's adversaries have a hand in that. What's amplified, what they're putting money behind, what you're being served up to you. This is something, it's the Iranian playbook, it's the Russian playbook. It's not always as clear cut. The way our adversaries work is like, we want this person in office, we don't want this person. What they want are divisive figures who are going to tear America apart from within, amplified, listened to, trusted, and beloved. And I think one of the really devastating things about the way the election went was there was this DOJ investigation into some of these, very prominent MAGA influencers who were basically being paid through a shell company, maybe not knowing, I want to be clear, they may have not known, but by foreign adversaries to promote certain propaganda. They're getting paid a lot of money, though.
They knew it was something weird. As someone who's in the content game, like I'm not getting paid $25,000 per video or something, whatever it was.
Like I would ask some questions, right? Yeah. But that was as clear as we needed to know that is an active space that America's adversaries are playing in, and it just kind of disappeared from the public consciousness. And I don't think most people realize that. Like when you're being served whatever lunatic conspiracy theory Candace or someone might be serving up to you that day, that it's not just how popular she is. It's not just how many Americans actively choose to opt into that. It's an algorithm our adversaries have had their fingers on to get in front of us to tear us apart.
So I'm interested because I would have thought this would have been a disagreement that we have, but maybe not. But like, what if Glenn Youngkin or whoever, Nikki Haley or whoever represents that like more traditional part of the Republican Party, like called you and was like, do you think that there's a lane for me to run against JD or whoever would represent the more conspiratorial MAGA lane? Like, do you think that there's anything there? Did Indiana give you any hope on that front, or is this?
I mean, today I don't think there's a lane, but I do think 3 years of what could be ahead could create one. I'm still convinced that there's some very scary things happening in the country, but I still think we're a center left, center right country. I still think that educated voting blocks especially, but I wouldn't limit it to that. I think we'll want something different. I think there's a world that we could get past the midterms and it won't be a question of who is vying most for Trump's endorsement. It could actually be who needs to distance themselves to get elected. That's a possibility. It feels really distant right now, but it's possible.
I mean, things would have to get really bad. I agree with you. That's possible, but I think things are bad now, but legit recession.
I want to be careful on how I say this because my POV as a Christian is I still just pray for the greatest success of America with the leaders that we have. I don't want bad to have a bad outcome for him or for anyone I disagree with. But listen, every president faces, whether it's public health crises, national security crises, natural disasters, economic ones, things are going to happen in the next 3 years that require intentional, thoughtful adult leadership. And in even looking at the first term, he does not rise to the moment in those moments. And I don't think he has a team around him that's nearly as competent in their ability to handle them as the first term. So who knows? It could go a lot of directions, but it's also possible he leaves office, they put his face on Mount Rushmore, and it's JD versus Marco for, the nomination.
Are you surprised that he hasn't come for you yet? I mean, maybe doesn't he feel like Trump doesn't he feel like he deserves his own woman on the chair? That feels like something he would care about.
I was like, do you mean prosecuting? No.
I meant like, the Jimmy Kimmel stuff. Like, shouldn't Alyssa be replaced with Caroline and her beautiful lips? He talked about her beautiful lips yesterday. The View's gotten some of the FEC scuttlebutt and those kind of things. And I would just remind folks of this, 2 things. Our media has never been more democratized than it is right now. Like you have The View, and then you have The Five. I don't see liberals out there being like, we need more Just Tarlovs, get rid of Gutfeld. Like it's a model of a show that just happens to work. There are days that I'm like, it would be nice to have someone a little more ideologically aligned here, but it's the show. It's what our audience wants. And on top of having total dominance in cable news with Fox News, he's now got his Newsmax, Real American News, and all of these like podcasts. It's not, Republicans used to have a pretty legitimate claim to be like, we are so underrepresented in mainstream media. It's just not really the case anymore. It's never been a MAGA seat, though, for what it's worth. This is the other thing people don't necessarily get is like, you have to be able to do the political segments with strong personalities and viewpoints, but then you have to be able to book and interview Kim Kardashian or Glenn Close or whoever it might be. And a lot of celebrities are not going to put themselves in that position if you have deeply polarizing voices. Yeah. Network is just very different. Glenn Close doesn't want to get the business from Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I guess she's the governor of Arkansas now. She's got other stuff to do. I want to go back to your DOD hat really quick because you're a spokesperson there for a little bit. And like, it's crazy what's happening over there. Excuse me, I guess. DOW.
Oh, yeah.
Department of War. A couple of things. So, like, what's happening with the press? The credentialed press is crazy. I mean, I don't feel like it gets enough attention. The department that covers the military, whatever you want to call it, has kicked out all the actual journalists and replaced them with like North Korean like agitprop hacks. And not only are they doing like just basically PR for the admin, there's a story from Mother Jones. I don't know if you saw this yesterday, where Mother Jones was asking a question about the background of one of White House advisors, and Jack Posobiec, who is one of the few credentialed press that they have in there, like then started emailing this guy and bullying him and threatening him. And it's like, wait a minute, I thought Jack was in the press, like he's doing PR, like Roger Stone type, work on behalf of the department, on behalf of the secretary. And it's crazy what's happening over there.
It's so wild. And it is stunning that it hasn't been a bigger story than it is. Like, keep in mind, there are 2 people on the planet who can launch military operations on behalf of the U.S. government. Pete Hegseth of Fox and Friends Weekend fame and the President of the United States. I could argue there's no building in the world more important to cover with just vigor, with accountability, with transparency, and with real journalistic like rigor than the White House and the Department of Defense. And the fact that we're basically applauding that we have people who are there as cheerleaders for the administration over like actual journalists, it goes against so much of what you and I would have believed in as like old school Republicans. But I have to commend, there've been a handful of folks who just like keep trolling them and being like, when are you going to break some news? Because meanwhile, you have reporters like Dan Lamothe at the Washington Post, Jennifer Griffin at Fox News. They're not even physically in the building, and they're breaking news. They're still working sources, and they're still giving the public what we need to know about what's happening at DOD. Natasha Bertrand's great at CNN. And it's like, I don't know. I think that there's this feeling of like sort of victimhood among this era of Republicans of like, we're underrepresented. We need our people. We need X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, you've got it all, but we didn't want it so that we could go be puppets for like the government that's in power, for the state. That's never been the goal. It's weird. It's honestly extremely jarring to see.
Yeah. What's your take on what's happening in the Caribbean?
All right, so I've got a take that apparently pissed some folks off, but I'll tell you.
Okay, great. Is neocon Alyssa about to come back out? And she's
slightly,
like, let's regime change in Venezuela. Yeah. Should we be expanding to Colombia? Maybe we should think about Colombia.
I'm totally with like the Rand Pauls of the world on these drug boat interdictions. I don't think there's a legal justification. The facts do not pan out that this is some sort of immediate threat to the United States. There's questions over if these drugs were even coming here. We know the bulk of fentanyl is not coming from Venezuela. And by the way, to Trump's credit, he largely secured the border. Even if they get it here, it's going to get interdicted on the ground in the United States. I do actually think that this tanker interdiction, I think, is both legal and I think it does make some sense. This was a boat that had previously been sanctioned because it was trafficking oil between Iran. There's others that have with the Russian government. I think that's in the purview of what we can do in that region. What I'm just super curious about is like, in the first term, we had this big diplomatic push to get Maduro out. It was basically Pence, Bolton, and Pompeo led. I think anyone left, right, and center can agree Maduro's a dictator. He's savaged a country that was, once one of the most prosperous in the region, and the world would be better if he's gone. But you don't have to support regime change. But it was very diplomatic led. We basically tried to get every nation in the Western Hemisphere to support the opposition leader, who was then Juan Guaido. We tried to get his credentials yanked at the UN, but no one ever talked about the idea of a military solution. I'm fascinated that in this like America first moment, no new wars, ending wars all over the world, that this is where the focus has gone. I still remain bullish that there's no way Trump puts boots on the ground in the Western Hemisphere, other than maybe like at the southern border. Yeah, right. But I'm actually have a big question mark over what the big end game here is. It may be a posturing against Russia. There's probably an oil and rare earth minerals component, but I'm not clear. Usually I have a pretty good read on what he's doing, and I'm not sure. What do you think?
I don't think he knows. I don't think he knows what he's doing. I think that this is Rubio and Stephen Miller pushed for, it's kind of, I feel like in some ways it's kind of like the Iran strike, where it's like Trump is like, I'm for it as long as it's good, as long as it's going well, as long as I can just say like we're killing bad guys, like I'm for it. So I agree with you. I think he's gonna be hesitant to actually advance it much beyond what's happening now. But I mean, what's happening now is crazy. And I mean, you do gloss over it a little bit, but you were in there. Just give you a little perspective, like the difference and you were in there in the first Trump term, which is meaningful, but like the difference between now and then was like the fact that like they don't seem to care at all about legal authority for stuff. I mean, when you were there working for Esper, like the process, I have to imagine, was like pretty rigorous as far as like making sure there was like, legal weigh in on what we were doing.
Yeah, I think that an undertold story of first term versus second is just how fundamentally different it is at every agency and like the White House's vantage point to the agencies. And I mean, the kind of cliche example everyone gives is like, you wouldn't even have a Robert Mueller in term 2. You wouldn't have a special counsel. Like DOJ would never hire that person. They'd never appoint that person. But it kind of does go to every single agency. I definitely at DOD, I mean, I remember a number of directions or ideas that came from the White House that then there would be pushback from the Joint Chiefs, from the Secretary of Defense, and it'd be a dialogue the way that it's supposed to be. That's exactly how it should happen. And I wonder how much that happens now. And I wonder about some of the caliber of advisors. Like, listen, we know Rubio. Rubio is a very, very savvy and smart person. He's got an outsized portfolio. But I also look at things with him from the vantage point of he clearly has presidential ambitions, and how does he navigate that? I don't think he's necessarily some kind of backstop against some of the more dangerous instincts. I think it's more, how do I stay aligned and build my own sort of accomplishments for when I eventually run for office?
I mean, you don't have a Mueller, but you don't even have like you had Don McGahn I'm not a huge John McGahn fan myself, but like the White House counsels, Cipollone in the first term, like it seemed to me like we're at least providing legal guidance. It was like you cannot do
take it or leave it, but
telling them that you can't do certain things. It's not clear to me there's any legal guidance telling them not to do anything.
No, I same. And I think that there's also this sort of baked in philosophy of let the courts oppose it. Like basically, let's do what we want. If the courts are going to step in, allow it. We all know the courts take time. They actually, I think, in many ways have been like a pretty successful backstop against some of the less than legal decisions. But I think they're very, very big, and it's a strategic decision to push the power of the executive and let the courts kind of decide what they can do.
Do you talk to like Esper at all, or any of the?
Yeah,
what
Esper I keep up with.
What's his view on things? I should get him on. Tell him to come on.
You actually should get him on. He does do a ton of media, although he does some, but I think that it's going about as we all expected. I don't want to speak for him, but I think it's going about as we all expected. But listen, I'll say this, like, I'm always going to be in the business of trying to call balls and strikes to the degree that I can. Like, I supported the Iran strikes. I don't think that they were definitive. I don't think they ended the nuclear threat, but like, I'm going to look for I'm going to look for the moments. I think the ceasefire, as fraught as it is, as, tenuous as it may be, I think that was largely a good thing. So like, find those bright moments, find your glass half full moments.
Here's one, the last thing I just want to ask you about, given your experience. I'm sorry, I'm not going to end on a glass half full moment. This wouldn't be the Bulwark podcast if we ended on that. It is striking how there are not Alyssas really this time. And I guess your departure came at the end of the first term, but even then throughout, like there were various people. And I do think it shows that we're at a different time. Like everybody that signed up for this knew what they were getting into. And I think there were fewer. I guess let me put it this way: it doesn't seem like there are any Alyssas, and I mean this in the sense of like when we talked for my book, and we talked about you going in. Like you had reservations about going in at all. Right. And like we're weighing like this question of like, I have my concerns about Trump, but is that outweighed by, public service and doing what you can? It doesn't feel like any of the people in this time had those reservations. Like, and I don't think we're going to be seeing people like doing principled departures. Maybe that's me being pessimistic, though. I don't know. It feels like you'd be the person people would call if they were thinking about doing it. So what do you think?
Phone hasn't been ringing. I generally agree right now, but I think a couple of things. I think the closer to the midterms we get and looking like the balance of power is going to change in Congress, I think you'll see some higher level departures, probably cabinet level, which will do I served, 2 years while I'm doing other things, but they want to avoid congressional oversight. They've gotten the benefit of a whole year of not having to do anything other than kind of the pro forma showing up.
But they're not going to trash them on the way out.
No, I don't think that. No. But I think we're still very early in. I think there are some parallels to 2017 and sort of that first iteration of characters that there are to now. And I think that I could see a world. I think this is much more staffed with loyalists. I think it's people who are truly bought into the agenda and who probably don't have any significant doubts about him. I think that's largely what he's surrounded by. But I do think if his popularity continues to wane the way that it is, that could change in 2 years. I don't know if it will. I don't know that it's going to necessarily come from a massive place of principle so much as like the political winds are shifting, but that could happen.
Yeah, I hope so. I don't know. I've gone from a place where, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I would have said something along the lines of like, eventually everyone is going to agree with me, so you might as well agree now. Like that's what was the case I used to make to like fellow Republicans. Mm-hmm. And they feel that way anymore. Okay, I think that the folks that are in this time are pretty much going to be dead enders. And I think that is a notable change. Do you have a better A more optimistic view?
I agree. I actually agree with your earlier assessment, but I think it's at like a decade from now. So like, I think it's when your daughter's getting ready for college. I still believe
when I'm a grandfather.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I still believe
and I won't
that
be letting those folks off the hook. I'll just let you know. You have the full dispensation from me, Alyssa. We've been around the bend. But if you quit in 2027, I'm sorry. That's not.
Exactly.
And we're in the old folks' home together. I'm not sitting next to you in the cafeteria. Okay,
I think that there are some things that are so sweeping in the way that they can be damaging to the long term of the country that I think the history books will remember it very differently. But I'm talking a decade out. The way that a lot of the world looks more fondly on George Bush now than they did, 10 years ago. I think it's going to be very different with Donald Trump. And I would point to USAID giving up our soft power on the world stage. Our betrayal of our own fellow Americans through cutting cancer research, all of these health changes that we're seeing, we're going to bear the consequences of that for years to come. I interviewed Bill Gates about it, and we had him on The View, and he was painting a dire warning about what we've done to public health in this country. Things like that, I think, are going to mar the way this period's remembered. And then, of course, the just anti-democratic actions. I do think there's an appetite for it. I think we're in a populist moment, and more Americans are kind of okay with it than are deeply opposed to it right now. But I still think the arc of history is long, and it's bending toward everyone being like, well, that was fucking crazy.
God willing, your lips to God's ears. Alyssa Farah Griffin, thank you. Let's not do a year and a half next time. Yes. Let's do it again soon. Good luck with that baby, and keep us posted. Post some pictures on Instagram. All right,
will do. Appreciate it.
Everybody else will be back here Monday with Bill Crystal. See y'all then. Peace.